Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kastuba. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator of the Bhakti Center in New York, Kastuba Das. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to Sleep In Saturday. It's a chance for you to sleep in a little later because we start the show at 8 o'clock. I got to go for a bike ride in the morning. That's what I do. Wake up, go for a bike ride.
That's your thing. I see that. You do the bike ride early.
That's the thing. It's good for me. And I get to breathe, get to think about life.
Yeah.
Get to listen to some audio books first thing in the morning. Mara gets to knit extra. Do our puja later after the show. Go to the dump. The usual Saturday rituals.
Okay.
Teacher training's over, so there's not a lot of pressure. And guess what? There's a special day coming up Tuesday. It's Mara's birthday.
All right.
Miss Mara's birthday. Let's hear it, message board. Give it up for Miss Mara.
Well, maybe they should wait till Tuesday, then really do it.
Oh yeah, forget it. Okay, don't write anything. There's two types of people in this world. There's people who are like, they don't even mention your birthday. It's like, yeah, my birthday was Tuesday, 3 days ago, and you're like, you're kidding. Why didn't you tell us? And then there's the people like, hey, next week is my birthday. Countdown.
The whole week. That's
birthday
you.
month. I'm that person.
Yes, no doubt. Okay, let's move this along, Raghunath.
Yeah, well, this is questions and answers day. This is a day for people to write in their questions for Wisdom of the Sages, and we answer them live. It's really true. And
Okay.
so people have we've assembled a whole list of questions. And if you have a question and you want to write us, please write us at wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. Wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. Do you remember the old days when people used to say, Wisdom of the Sages, that's one word? No one says that anymore. Wisdom of the Sages 108@gmail.com. Of course, that's one word. It's an email, people. Come on. Oh, time's moving fast.
Okay.
Any other announcements, Miss Mara?
We have Bhakti recovery group meetings at 9:30 and 12:30 today. And Inanda Chandra's Shloka group meets at 10 a.m.
A Shloka group at 10 a.m. That's one word. I'm going to say that all day today. It's one word.
And we're here tomorrow, same time, 8 a.m. with a show that we've yet to announce exactly what it's going to be.
Oh, it's sort of special, but we can't say.
Okay. Hey, you know, something else news that, like you just confirmed, right? Raghunath and I will be participating in the Janmashtami celebration at the Bhakti Center on September 6th. It's Krishna's birthday. It goes all night, right? It goes till midnight or so. A little past midnight, right? And that'll be a lot of fun. So maybe
I hope they give me my speaking point way before midnight because my bedtime's like 9 o'clock. You're gonna get a real lousy Krishna Leela if it's like at 11.
No, we're gonna put you on early, Raghunath.
Put me on early. What am I doing again? I'm talking about Krishna.
The latest
I
I've
have
heard
this
is
great story.
we kind of kick the whole thing off.
We kick it off. Okay, great. Will it be live streamed? Most likely, I think.
We could do it one way or another.
Let's do that.
All
Let's
right.
do that.
let's do these questions.
Okay, so we got some good questions today for Q&A day.
Yeah.
Let's dive right in, Miss Mara. Find out how to get there. All right, this is from Nitin from New York via email. See, we do answer the emails. Greetings, revered Prabhus. A bit of
Greetings to
background.
you, Nitin Prabhu.
Greetings to you, Nitin. A bit of a background as to the context of my query. My father recently passed away. I've come across some instruction that speaks of how the soul, while it can't see or hear, etc., can still feel. In particular, that the strong emotions of loved ones can potentially be painful for the departed, disembodied soul.
Okay.
My question is, does the soul really have feelings? It is said that the soul has the characteristic of the divine, Sat Chit Ananda, and since feelings are largely the product of the mind and ego, then how can we ascribe that to the soul? Pretty interesting question there. Nice to think of it like that.
Good fundamental question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man. My new cup is broken. We put the cup. Look at this cool cup I got. Did you see this? It's a Cartel's cup. And you're not supposed to put them in the dishwasher, and they sort of crush. Crud. Anyway. Okay, back to Nitin. You want me to take a stab at this, or you want to go first?
Sure. Either way, as you like.
Well, the subtle body stays with the soul unless the soul is purely liberated. And therefore, there is, from what I understand, there's attachment. There's attachment to the family. There's attachment to the home. There's attachment to the stuff. Just like there's attachment now. I have attachment to my home and to my family and my stuff. And part of becoming liberated is understanding that none of this is my stuff. So when there's attachment from those who have been departed and from the departed, there's still that sort of subtle attachment until they become more grossly an illusion and take on their new body. So it's always best wherever we are in life to assist our departed to become very, very God conscious, because that allows them to leave. That allows them to move on, and it affects them in the same way that your activities affect your children and even your grandchildren and great-grandchildren, etc. I can't say Kastuba doesn't have kids, but I imagine Kastuba had a child. And we know Kastuba is a pure devotee of Krishna. So don't you think Kastuba's, look at his face, he made a funny face. Yes, I do.
That wasn't what I was indicating.
So Kastuba is a pure devotee, and therefore if he has a child, don't you think that's going to affect his child? In the same way, if Kastuba became a murderer, don't you think that would affect his child? Oh, yeah, Kastuba's in jail. And now, so what we do affects our children, affects our parents, even our departed parents, even our departed grandparents, because we're all strangely karmically connected, and we affect them by our activities. That's my my feelings about it here.
Yeah, that was all interesting stuff. Although Nitin, he actually wasn't asking for advice on how to deal with it. He was just
okay.
Oh
yes. Does the soul really have feelings?
The fundamental question. That was just the context of the question. But the question is, does the soul really have feelings?
Okay, I can answer that. But you know what? Why don't you talk? Why don't I pass the baton? Because
all right, I'll take it. Well, so, and then let's. It's only one more sentence to his question. It is said that the soul has the characteristics of the divine, namely Sat Chit Ananda, which means the divine is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss.
Yeah.
And therefore the soul or the self also has those characteristics of eternality, knowledge, and bliss. Because we're made of the energy of God, right? If God has those characteristics, like the sunshine is made of the energy of this, is the energy of the sun. So the sunshine has the same qualities of heat and light as the sun has. Okay. And since feelings are largely a product of the mind ego, stop right there. We need to address that because I think that's not precisely correct. Then how can we ascribe that to the soul, right? If feelings are something that takes place in the mind, then how can we ascribe feelings to the soul? It would seem like the soul has no feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's go right there. The soul is the only thing that feels. the only energy that has feelings. The spirit. There's two. If you took all the energy in the universe, divided it into two, you have two categories: spiritual energy, material energy. Krishna does this in the 7th chapter, right? He breaks it down, right? Bhumir apalano viyukang manu evacha ahankara ityang me bina prakritirastida. That the material energy is earth, water, fire, air, ether. Those are called the mahabhutas, like the gross material elements, the tangible, easily perceived, less refined material elements. And then the more refined, which is the mind, we could say the impulsive mind or the manas, the ego, the ahankara, and the buddhi, the intellect. Krishna says, that's my material energy. And then besides that, there's the superior energy, paraprakriti, which he says that means that refers to the jivas, the souls, right? Now, what's the difference between the material energy and the spiritual energy? There's two fundamental differences. The material energy, the forms and the shapes that it takes are temporary, whereas the spiritual energy is eternal. You can't alter it in any way. You can't break it down. Material energy can break it down. Give me any material form and we can break it down. We can remove the earthy element. We can remove the watery element. Breaks. Spiritual energy, you can't do that with. It's eternal. It doesn't change. It's irreducible. So that's one difference. The other difference is that material energy is insentient. It doesn't feel, and that includes the mind. The ego, the intellect. The mind doesn't feel anything. The mind, but it's the self that is sentient, the soul that is sentient. It actually has feelings. That's what it does. It feels, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then what's going on between the connection between the mind and the self? Think of it like this: like I see, right? I can see, and then if you put a let's say you put like a blue tinted glasses in front of my eyes, now I see the world as blue. I'm the one that's seeing. The glasses made me see blue,
right?
But I'm the one that's seeing. Right?
Imagine what it must be like to see out of the eyes of an alligator or a canary or like a possum. Like, what do they see? They don't see you like I see you, right? Or a fly. What does a fly see when they see you? Just or
perhaps
moving.
A squirrel
or a squirrel. Not
okay.
what you're talking about.
Because
you're saying change the lenses. I'm saying change the eyeball.
Okay, well, but that's an interesting idea because they do have different eyeballs and different seeing capacities. A hawk has a much sharper focused lens. It has a different lens that has ability to see. I wonder have they ever thought of since
putting
a hawk's eyes into a human being? Imagine that.
Yeah, but they have really tiny eyes.
Doesn't matter. You'd see really good. Okay.
Would you take the would you sacrifice looking sort of normal?
Yeah.
Like
right.
if I saw you on the subway, I was like, look at that guy with tiny little eyes.
Would you sacrifice?
But to have incredible vision.
I'm just happy with what Krishna gives me right now. I don't want to go switching it up.
All right. Bionic man.
Okay, but let's keep moving on this road.
I love when Kastuba squirrels.
But so if I'm the one that's seeing. If you put blue glasses in front of me, now I'm still the only one. My glasses aren't seeing anything. I'm still seeing through the glasses, but now I'm experiencing blue with my vision. Everything seems to be tinted blue. And if you flip it and you put green glasses on me, glasses with green lenses, now, again, I'm still the only one that's seeing. The external instrument that I see through has changed, and now I'm seeing everything as green. That's the relationship between the self or the soul and the mind.
Sure.
The self is the mind doesn't feel anything. The soul feels through the mind. The mind is changing and shifting in all different ways and affecting the experience of the self. Right.
But you know what it's like?
It's only the mind
it's like The Boy in the Plastic Bubble. Do you remember that TV show?
John Travolta, I believe.
John Travolta, The Boy in the Plastic Bubble. Only Lori Pag remembers that. Anyway, there was about a guy who had to live for his like immune system in a plastic tent and a plastic bubble. And so when you had to like hold hands with him, you had to stick your hand in that plastic bubble and you embrace through the plastic. You're never quite touching the skin, right? You're living in that plastic bubble. Or if I was under a blanket and I said, Mara, and Mara says, hold my hand. And I hold her, but my hand's in the blanket. It's not like you're touching the person. So even though it appears like we have touch and we have sight and we have scent, it's actually limited because it's only just going through the instruments of this particular body.
This body's the bubble.
Yeah. And we think like, yeah, I'm really tasting, I'm really smelling. You're not. It's only partial. Isn't that interesting?
So the point that you're
really
making,
seeing, you would see full color spectrums that we can't do. If you're really hearing, you could hear things like the dog could hear. But we're not. They're limited with our limited instruments. Boy, in the plastic bubble. Boom.
So, because if you look at the question, Nitin's question again, there's something here. He says, my question is, does the soul really have feelings? It is said that the soul has the characteristics of the divine. And since feelings are largely product of the mind ego, then how can we ascribe that to the soul? So in a sense, Nitin, that logic would conclude that God is incapable of feeling. The divine is incapable of feeling. You understand? Because you're saying try to understand this, that everything, all the equipment is kind of like we're in a virtual reality. A person can see on their own, but when they go into the virtual reality, they're seeing through the computer programming. A person can feel on their own, but when they put on the virtual outfit, the gloves, and all the things are connected to their senses, the sight and the sound and all of that, they're seeing an artificial realm through artificial equipment. And real life is when you take all that stuff off. So similarly, the soul can see, but it's become limited when it has to see through the material eyes. The soul can hear, but its hearing is limited through the material ears. It's a downgrade. This body and this mind are a downgrade from the soul's abilities. Now, what Nitin is saying, he said, like I've heard from different sources, or what did he say? How exactly to phrase it? Greetings. I've come across some instructions that speak of how the soul, while it can't see or hear, can still feel. So to me, that's I question the source of those instructions, right? It's a lot of times things get mixed up just in the language or the the terminology and so on, and maybe that's what happened here. But there may be some philosophers out there that interpret the Vedic teachings, the yogic teachings in that way, that the soul is just kind of like this amorphous kind of experience, light, right? And anything that of any variety, is merely a product of the mind. We say no, the mind is just altering. It's a downgrade, altered. You perceive through a downgrade and altered instrument, which is the mind, but it's always the self that feels. It's only the self that feels. Therefore, Patanjali calls, when he speaks of the self at the beginning of the Yoga Sutras, he uses that term drista, the seer, right? He's not talking about the eyes, but he's talking about within the body, through the eyes, which send information to the mind. The drista, the real seer, the self, experiences sight. Okay. Anyway, that's my.
You know what? It's actually, I've never really thought about this, but like we're seeing through our own perspective of my limited eyes, my limited spectrum of vision. I don't have the eagle eyes. I don't have the dog hearing. That it is such a downgrade, actually, and that
big downgrade.
Imagine when we actually become fully liberated, when we have how incredible the muscle. Like, for example, we see something beautiful, right? Or we smell a rose, or if we hear a beautiful song. Imagine if that was like in super high fidelity with all our senses. That's what it must be like when the pure spirit soul is unencumbered by the meat suit, by the meat puppet.
Meat Beat Manifesto, Raghunath.
Meat Beat Manifesto, the meat puppets. Come on.
All right. So hopefully, Nitin, that's will be helpful. A good question. I appreciate the question.
Of course, Greg
our
DeGasu
our condolences for your father.
Yes, of course, Greg DeGasu puts the YouTube link for Boy in the Plastic Bubble.
Great. All right, ready for the next question?
Yes, my friend. Why don't you read that one too?
Okay, this comes from
You have
Jeremiah.
a good reading voice. I like your reading voice.
Thank you, Jeremiah. I think some episodes back he asked what we call the deepest question in the history of wisdom of the sage. I forget what the question was.
Jeremiah was a bullfrog.
So
Remember
he writes,
song?
I do. I hope this finds you all well.
You're not going to even entertain me today, are
I'm
you?
done entertaining that stuff because you're going too far, and it's like every single thing nowadays. I just have to start to ignore it, you know. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Jeremiah writes, I hope this finds you all well. I need some direction, guidance, and a potential schedule. He's asking for a schedule here. This is like Raghunath life coaching here. I need a potential schedule on kickstarting my spiritual journey. I'll try to give you the Cliff Note version of how I got to where I currently am, because it definitely plays a role in the current state. I was born and raised into Pentecostal Christianity. Pentecostal, I think, is like, you know, they're, from what I've seen, my limited, I don't really know anything about it, but it's, when I hear that Pentecostal, I think that's Southern Baptists, you know, at least that's been my experience. But
let me look them up. You talk. I'm going to look them up on Wikipedia.
Well, no, you got to listen, Raghunath. You have to listen to the question. He writes, I even went to a Baptist school all through elementary and high school. I wonder what that was like.
A Baptist high school.
I've heard of Catholic school, but Baptist school. To say those teachings and culture ingrained in is an understatement. Okay, you know, they programmed me, he's saying, right? I was raised by the fear of the Lord. Through my 20s and early 30s, I began to question things I had been taught. I began researching many esoteric. He's breaking free, Raghunath.
He's breaking free from the cult.
That's a good cult. He began researching many esoteric things, dove into occult teachings, various other religions, especially Buddhism, and what some deem as quote unquote New Age philosophies.
New Age philosophy.
Tarot cards.
We are light.
Tarot cards, meditation, tons of books, my chakras, etc., were common themes and things I was researching to find my way. Good for you, Jeremiah.
The Pentecostals are not happy about the chakra books or the white light crystal books. Not. They're not into those. Not.
I began finding liberation in many of these newfound paths. I found these paths were telling me to look within and search my soul, and not to fear of hell or what I was doing, or that I was doing something wrong. We are humans and mess up. We are humans, and mess ups are what we do. Forgive others. Forgive yourself. Grow from it and move on. Don't dwell. I began finding truth in multiple spiritual paths to the point that I began calling myself an omniist, essentially someone who finds truth in all religions.
Okay. I've never heard that, omniist. Have you? An omniist.
Maybe he made it up.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure.
I think I was an omniist too.
Okay. About 4 months ago, I wanted to start increasing my deeper knowledge on Hinduism and specifically Krishna. I've been blown away and how everything that is taught lines up with a path that I've started on. Meditation, looking within, chanting, vegetarianism, many paths of God, etc. I feel this calling towards this path can't be any clearer. Pieces are starting to snap into place for Jeremiah, right? I know that feeling. Okay. Here's where it has become difficult. And this is where he needs your help, Raghunath. I want to begin doing morning rituals to honor and pray, as well as chants throughout the day to connect with God. However, from my upbringing, I have realized that I have a deep-seated fear that I'm going to do it wrong and be punished. So he feels like he's not going to be punished for moving out of the one religion to the other. He's going to be punished for just not doing that new spiritual practice correctly. If I understand correctly.
Yeah.
Everything that I've read says that there is no real process for becoming a follower like in Christianity. No, there are processes. We will get to that. But it's not computing in my brain, so I need guidance on what is a good daily suggested practice ritual. What's a good morning ritual? How often should I chant? Are there certain times? Christianity was so by the book that my mind almost needs a journal telling what I should do each day. I wish I could wash that clean and start fresh, but here we are. He says, I also wish that I could find a community around me here in Lexington, Kentucky, but I haven't found a community yet. I've reached out to the local Hindu temple, but I feel, and rightfully so, to our area, that they're very exclusive.
Yeah,
Rightfully
sometimes they
so, due
can
to
be.
our area. He's saying like maybe the Hindus,
Not welcome.
no
Sorry.
Pentecostals allowed.
Stay away from our daughters.
Okay, but I feel, and rightfully so, due to our area, that they are very exclusive on who they let into the community. Sometimes you just got to break through, but it's probably just another culture. So I haven't heard anything back. I haven't heard back from the Hindu temple. Any suggestions on daily practices in a community around here for my next steps in my spiritual journey would be greatly appreciated. Help, Raghunath, help.
These are great desires. Where's our friend Charu live? True Chandra.
I think he's in Kentucky somewhere.
He's in Kentucky somewhere. He's got a cool farm thing going on.
Maybe if you could find that info, I could pass it on to Jeremiah.
I don't know him that well, but anyway, we could find out. Gopakishore knows him.
Yeah.
I think Gopakishore bought property there too.
There you go.
Anyway,
is it around Lexington?
This is really interesting because you got to really search association out.
Yeah.
Well, great question. And I would just start adding Krishna to your life. First thing in the morning, you wake up, you take your shower. You wake up, you bathe. It's sort of simple. And then you sit down and what I would tell a new person is you get your japa malas, your beads, and you chant one round of japa in a prayerful mood, calling divinity, calling God, calling Krishna into your life. You're not going to get punished for doing it wrong. You're only going to do it right. You call with sincere intention. And for that time that it takes you to chant one round, it might take, after a while, you can do it very quickly, but it might take you 20 minutes just to chant one round on beads and make it like every syllable of every word of every mantra is a strong petition, just like little baby Vedic Jay is on the show. Just like when that baby calls for mom, it's really calling out. So you call out for Krishna like a baby would call for the mother. And then you read, me and Mara, because it's Purushottam Mass, it's a special month. We've been reading chapter 15 every day. And you know what's great? And I've had times in my life where I'd read a chapter every day. It's so damn good. Just read it in English. Read a chapter of the Bhagavad Gita every day. If there's a long chapter, like chapter 2, break it in half. And just read half
share
of
some
it.
with you too, Raghunath. The last purport to the 1520, the last Prabhupada gives a nice summary there too.
Yeah.
Maybe dip into that one of these.
Dip into the purport, yeah. So
you
or you just make a deal. I'm going to read 20 verses a day of the Bhagavad Gita, and then you just keep doing that and keep it on rotation, and that's a great little practice in the morning. And then in the evening time, I would say you do another little reading of something else, just a little bit, and maybe you write a list of things that you're grateful for, and make a commitment to stop complaining about stuff. And make a commitment to stop criticizing people. Make those two commitments. Stop complaining, stop criticizing, and add Krishna to your life. Our Orthodox Hare Krishnas might say, well, where does it say stop complaining? It's in there. And if you actually want to chant,
it's in there.
It's
all over the place.
Yeah, it's all over the place. If you really want to start to refine your chanting, complaining, blaming, those things got to go. And then that'll bring us to a higher caliber of chanting the Maha Mantra. That's a little way to start. Maybe get a picture of Krishna, one you're really attracted to, and maybe have a little sacred altar in your apartment or home that you can sit down in front, and that's where you can do your chanting, or that's where you can, you pick a flower. Like whenever I see flowers, we go for walks a lot. Whenever I see a flower, pick that, put that on my altar, That's part of my joy. And whenever I ever go for a walk, I'm looking. Oh, I'd like to offer that flower to Krishna. It's tiger
Neighbors
lily
aren't wild
season.
about
I'm going to
this.
offer that. Huh?
Your neighbors aren't wild about this, but still.
They don't like it's all Krishna's.
Yeah.
That's my humble
Yeah, that's great,
advice.
Raghunath. I think Jeremiah, please know that actually, if anything, I think in the yoga traditions, it's actually more kind of like the processes are laid out very clearly, step by step, right? Padhatis, just step by step instructions about how to do different practices. And so, yeah, but we can try to make that, give you something simple like this. I wanted to mention the idea of joining a Sage group. They're going to open our Sage groups where you join a small group online and meet once a week for about an hour and a half. The new groups will open up in September. So we'll be announcing that as we get closer to that time. But that's a great way to get some Sangha. Association is going to be real important. There's not going to be a whole lot of it out in Kentucky. So that's a great way to connect. And I want to say this too, there's a future that we're envisioning, right? Where when you start to get interested in this, that, like Raghunath and I are trying to work more closely with the Bhakti Center and work more closely with Vani, this online platform, and really just provide more instruction so that you could actually join like we want to open up the Sage Academy, right? And there get real, there could be courses and instructions about just how to, just laying out exactly what you're asking for. Like, here's how to practice, whether it's what you're hearing or what you're chanting, but even like the basic things of like how to wake up, how to, eat in such a way that's conducive for your spiritual practice, how to go to sleep in a way that's conducive for your spiritual practice, like just real lifestyle kind of trainings,
Well, and even though we're talking about creating this spiritual metaverse for people that are isolated, it's really good stuff. That being said, there comes a point of there comes a point in a person's life where they're like, you know what? There comes a point in a person's life where they're like, I want to live near other devotees.
Yeah.
So it's either like people tend to move to where there are devotees, or they start creating devotees around them by just saying, once a week, there's a study of the Bhagavad Gita. Once a week, we have a kirtan once a week. And I've seen that happen all over just by having monthly kirtans at yoga studios or weekly kirtans. People, a lot of our members do it right now.
That's right.
But again, it's also important to study the philosophy with the kirtan. A lot of times people say, we're just doing kirtan once a week, and that's great. But philosophy and kirtan go hand in hand. You hold hands together, or else what happens, you get people just creating their own philosophy around them. But anyway, you're in a good place, and we're really trying to take care of...
I haven't finished my answer, though. I feel you going into the wrap-up.
I'm sorry. I'm wrapping it up here.
Yeah, so I was just
it is great.
Yeah, so what Raghunath was saying, ideally you want to wake up early in the morning, before everybody else is up. 6, 5, 4, 3,
2.
But at least, if you can get up like, Bhakti yogis, we don't want to get up after 6 a.m. You're really missing out on like a lot if you do, so even try to bump it to 5.
I woke up at 6 today. I woke up at 6 today because Tarun had me staying up really late till I went to bed at like 11:15 watching Dumb and Dumber.
Okay.
And he really enjoyed it.
Okay. So wake up early, bathe when you get up first thing. That's a lot of people don't do that. If you want to have a nice clear mind, bathing is very important.
First thing in the morning.
Bathe first thing in the morning. Okay. How often should you chant? You should chant daily, at least, right? And ideally you have beads and you make a minimum. It can be small. It could be 2 rounds a day. It could be 1 round a day. It could be 4 or 8, or 16. But you want to set good times to chant are morning, and evening also works well too sometimes. When after you've let go of everything for the day. You either want it to be before you have to grab into the day, or after you've let go of the day, so your mind can be at peace, not thinking about what's next, what am I not doing right now that I should be doing. You want to have a little peace of mind, So I would suggest something like Raghunath said, if you read 20 verses of Bhagavad Gita every day, which takes just a few minutes,
Yeah, just the English.
just the English,
And you dip into the
maybe
purport
dip into one purport.
occasionally.
Yeah. Then you'll read the Bhagavad Gita pretty much in its entirety in 35 days, so in a month, right? And if you yeah, in 35 days. So you could read the Bhagavad Gita like 11 times in the year, something, if you do that, which is great. That's really going to be good for your mind, for your yoga practice. So say here just that, I'm going to chant 2 rounds a day. I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m., bathe, chant 2 rounds, and read 20 verses of Bhagavad Gita. Just that right there is a great daily start. You want to come back in the evening, do a little bit more, something a little different, read Krishna's pastimes in the Krishna book. That's a good place to go, right?
Great
Krishna,
place.
the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that book by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. You can read that in the evening, read from that every evening. There's a nice program, so things like that, then you can increase on that, but Shravanam and Kirtanam, hearing from these sacred texts and chanting these names, these are two these are like the rails that the train of Krishna Bhakti rides on. These are like fundamental. They should be built into our daily practice if you really want some traction in this, if you really want to get going. Okay. You ready for the next question?
Next, please.
Oh, this is question. Oh yeah. You read the question. I researched this question. I found that all the acharyas, this is a question about Bhagavad Gita, about a particular verse of Bhagavad Gita. I researched, I found all the acharyas speak in a similar way, and we're going to see if Raghunath is thinking like the great acharyas.
Okay, so do you understand what's going on? He's already researched what the acharyas said about this question. Yeah. I haven't, and I'm going to read the question, and I'm going to see
why don't I read that. I'll read the question to you because you're the one on the hot seat. We haven't done the hot seat in a long time.
What's the hot seat? You're asking what I think about this, and maybe
but it
I'll
is a
think
hot
like
seat
the acharyas, and maybe I won't.
Yeah, the seat's a little hot. That's all. Okay. This has come from Road Rage.
Road Rage, Maturananda from Croatia, from Split, Croatia.
Okay. He writes, often bhakti yogis say, whatever we think of at the time of death will determine our next destination. Okay.
Got that.
In Bhagavad Gita, text chapter 8, text 6, Krishna says, whatever one remembers upon giving up the body at the time of death, O son of Kunti, or Arjuna, one attains that state, being always absorbed in such contemplation. That is not Prabhupada's translation there, Maturananda, but it actually includes something that Prabhupada really didn't write into his translation. So that's important. And I'll get to that later. He says, to me, it feels like we need to make some mechanical effort. Also, we see people on their deathbeds, and I cannot say that they are thinking of one single thing. Also, what if we die suddenly, like many do? Right. Why shouldn't it be more like simply we go where we need to go, regardless of what we're thinking there at the end, where we're supposed to go based on our desire and karma. I'm sure Krishna knows better than me how to arrange this. Okay. but I wanted to hear your thoughts on this. So he's saying that it's said in the Gita, and the followers of the Gita say that whatever you're thinking of at the time of death, that determines your next birth, where you go. That seems too
romantic, picture perfect.
Oh no, that's not what what it seems like. What he's saying to me is, it seems like that's too random. It's too, I could be thinking of anything.
Sure, because death comes randomly, you're saying.
Yeah, and so why should it be resting on that particular thought, right?
I understand. You want to hear what I think about this? And I'm hoping the acharyas, I'm hoping what I say is in line with the acharyas, because I've really thought about this deeply, because I know really great devotees who've had untimely deaths.
Okay.
And my firm conviction, whether the acharyas say this or not, my firm conviction is that Krishna understands our heart. Oh. Krishna understands our intentions. You can't cheat the system. You can't be like, okay, I'm going to think of Krishna now. Shoot me now. Right. I think it's, you can't cheat the system. The system's there. They're the laws of nature. So if you've been giving your life to Krishna and your heart's been towards Krishna, Krishna understands that. And even if something untimely was to happen, like someone whacks me in the head with if I'm a pure devotee, let's just assume I'm a pure devotee for just the sake of this analogy. And someone comes behind me and whacks me in the head with a Louisville Slugger. That's a baseball bat. Krishna will appear in my mind as I leave my body, because Krishna is real and he understands, okay, this guy's whatever. Raghu's getting some, this is his pastime of how he's going to leave his body. So I'm going to enter his mind right now when he's leaving. No, it wasn't this romantic way as Bhishma Dev, the Mahajan, one of the great souls, left his body. He's on the battlefield. He's riddled with arrows. And he says, call Krishna in front of me, and then he meditates on Krishna and he leaves. It might not be that way, but that doesn't mean that Krishna cannot enter our heart and our mind at the time of death.
Okay.
What do the great masters, the acharyas, say about this, Kaustubha? Am I way off or what?
They agree with you, Raghunath. Or you agree with them. Holy, you're speaking in such a high tone of voice that it didn't even come through the microphone.
I'm thinking
Sometimes
like the acharyas.
Yeah. Okay, so first let's read the verses that relate to this. We're going to read the last verse of the 7th chapter, and then we're going to read, Mathurananda mentioned Road Rage. He mentioned text 8.6. But we're going to read text 8.5 through 8.8 because that whole section deals with this idea. Okay. So at the end of the 7th chapter, Krishna said this to Arjuna. He said, those in full consciousness of me, who know me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of all material manifestation, of the demigods, and of all methods of sacrifice, they can understand and know me even at the time of death. Okay. Even when they're going through it, even when they're getting ripped out of that body, if they know me in this way, if they become conscious of me in this way, then they can know me even at the time of death. So then just 5 verses later, because actually then the next verse, text 8.1, Arjuna begins to ask questions of Krishna, including, how can one remember you at the time of death? And so in text 8.5, Krishna mentions, whoever at the end of their life quits their body remembering me alone at once attains my nature. Of this there's no doubt. Okay. Whatever state of being, then text 8.6, famous verse, yam yam vapi smaram bhavam
Tyajanti antikalevaram.
Whatever state of being one remembers when one quits their body, O Arjuna, that state he will attain without fail. That's Prabhupada's translation of it, which was, it didn't include everything. Mathurananda's translation that he read from, it said, let's find it again. One attains that state being always absorbed in such contemplation, which is actually there mentioned in that sada tadbhava bhavita. Sada means like all the time. Sada tadbhava bhavita. Tadbhava bhavita, they attain that nature, that state, due to their constant absorption in it, right? So text 8.7, therefore, I always love this verse too. What is it? Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudyacha. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me. Sarveshu kaleshu. Mam, like all the time, right? Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu, all of the time. Mam anusmara, be thinking of me, be remembering me. Smarnam, right? Mam anusmara means that it's not just like something that's done occasionally, but it's like a path. It's like something.
My spiritual path is for an hour and 20 minutes once a week. Like that's how we are taught our spiritual life to be.
Well,
check in.
You do that because it's leading towards to constant remembrance, right? So he says, therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me, but mamanu smarta, right? Remember me, yudyacha, and at the same time fight, right? Even when you're engaged in your worldly duties and responsibilities, always think of me. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. So live your life
remembering me, right? That's the art of this. And then text 8:8, he who meditates on me as the supreme personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, he, O Partha, is sure to reach me. So there it's indicating that you cultivate remembering Krishna, seeing Krishna always, everywhere, right? And then naturally you remember him at the time of death. Now, the first thing I wanted to bring up, and I think Raghunath, you kind of addressed it, was it's not necessarily like you think, okay, you know, someone hit me over the head with the Louisville Slugger, and that moment, what was I thinking at that exact moment? But the experience of death includes, and maybe more importantly, you know, includes, maybe you seem to be out to everyone else when you got hit by that Louisville Slugger, but what are you absorbed in right after you got hit by that Louisville? You know, not necessarily at the moment when you got hit, but the moment after you got hit by the Louisville Slugger, when you appear to be out, you're going through the process of death at that moment, and you're conscious. Although you appear unconscious to everyone else, you're experiencing something. And according to how you've lived and what you've cultivated in your mind, in your thoughts, that's where your mind's going to go at that point. I think that's what's being said here. And so therefore becomes a question of, what have I cultivated steadily, regularly throughout my life? Because once I get hit with that Louisville Slugger, that stuff is going to rise.
Sure.
You know, right?
Well, I think there's two things, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I get hit, and there may be a moment where boom, Krishna, right? Where I'm actually, the stuff in me is rising, but then there's also Krishna descending.
Yes, sure.
You know what I mean? It's like two. It's like you're reaching out from the, getting swept away in the ocean, and then someone's on land grabbing your wrist, and you're grabbing their wrist. So there's a little bit of both, right?
Yeah, sure. Now let's hear what Prabhupada writes about this in his commentary on text 8.6. He writes, of course, one's thoughts during the course of one's life accumulate. Think about that. Think that your thoughts are accumulating towards your moment of death. Ooh. This is something to think about, right? Of course, one's thoughts during the course of one's life accumulate to influence one's thoughts at the moment of death. So this life creates one's next life. If in one's present life, one lives in the mode of goodness and always thinks of Krishna, it is possible for one to remember Krishna at the end of one's life. That will help one be transferred to the transcendental nature of Krishna. If one is transcendentally absorbed in Krishna's service, then their next body will be transcendental, spiritual, not material. Therefore, the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is the best process for successfully changing one's state of being at the end of one's life. Okay. Now, let's hear what Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, important commentator on Bhagavad Gita. He says, this verse explains that just as by remembering me, Krishna, one attains me, as stated in the previous verse 8.5, so by remembering something else, one attains something else, being completely absorbed in, or being similar to the object, bhavita, by constant thoughts, bhava, of that object, right? Our regular thoughts, our constant thoughts, are what is going to shape our mind and what will arise at the time of death. Now, Ramanuja says, engrossment in it is tadbhava, one by whom that is remembered as a matter of habitual recollection is tadbhava bhavitaha, right? Habitual recollection. What becomes your habit of where your mind goes, right? That's what's going to arise and determine your future existence. Sridhar, the great commentator, Sridhar Swami says, the cause of smarana, or remembering something specific at the time of death, is due to constantly thinking about or meditating upon something with the mind fully absorbed in it. So where we consciously absorb our mind, that's what's going to come up. Madhva, very interesting what he writes. He says, it is not that the Supreme Lord should be meditated on only at the moment of death. You can't cheat the system. You won't even be able to do it if you're not, right? To the contrary,
he should be remembered. Krishna should be remembered, recollected, and contemplated upon at every moment. The spiritually developed have no such confusion, as their remembrance of the Supreme Lord is the focal point of their lives and constant. To think that such remembrance is to be utilized only as a one-time proposition at the moment of death is an unwise consideration. Okay, so it's very much like what you're saying. You don't cheat the system. You invest your mind in this throughout your life. It will come to you at the moment of death. And finally, from Shankara, he says that there's no doubt that at the time of death, it is not easy to remember the Supreme Lord due to the difficulties of dying. Like if you're going through a slow death and your body's in a lot of pain, and at the time of departure from the body, one must be attuned to the inner nature. The word bhava means internal consciousness. The internal consciousness is that which abides internally. Thus it is said, it is the nature which abides within. Only if one contemplates something continuously does it become fixed as internal consciousness and manifest as part of one's nature. This says a lot about why we practice, why we hear Bhagavatam every day, why we meditate on Mahamantra every day, right? Because you have to continually contemplate something for it to become fixed as your internal consciousness and manifest as part of one's nature. Otherwise, what one will think at the moment of death will be mere ego-related ideas derived from one's own mundane empirical experiences. Oh no, that's Skanda Purana. That was Madhva quoting Skanda Purana. So, I mean, there's two more quick ones. I'll read them. Keshava Kashmiri says, the reason Lord Krishna also gives with the words Saratad Bhava Bhavita, meaning due to being completely absorbed in such contemplation, the powerful prominence of the final thought and image infuses itself upon the consciousness determining their next birth. That's like you were saying, descending, Raghunath. You know, it's like it, because you put in all of that contemplation earlier, it infuses itself at the time of death. And then finally, Shankara. Engrossment in it is tadbhava. One by whom that is remembered as a matter of habitual recollection is tadbhavataha. Okay, so they're all saying the same thing. They're all saying that you need, what's going to arise in your mind is where your mind's, at the moment of death, is what's been in your mind and what you've been habitually recollecting as you've lived your life. We have the ability to consciously choose what will become our internal nature. And sadhana is practice for that purpose. And the practice of remembering what we're contemplating during our sadhana, during our studies, during our meditation throughout the day is what Krishna is calling upon Arjuna to do in the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, so that when the moment of death comes, that remembrance, that smarana will naturally, automatically arise within one's mind. And as Raghunath says, there's no cheat in the system.
Like that. Like
All
that.
right.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting to have access to all the other acharyas, commentaries, hear what they have to say.
Yeah.
That was great. Good research. And I'm glad.
Thank
I'm
you.
thinking.
Yeah,
like
and you
those
passed the test,
acharyas.
Raghunath.
Woohoo! Passing the hot seat.
Okay.
And
I
here's
think
Miss
that's it for
Mara.
today, right?
Oh, that's it. Miss Mara doesn't
no
have
takeaways.
takeaways on Saturday. Tomorrow's the special day, the secret day. It's a sleep-in Sunday. You can sleep until 8 o'clock. We're going to be here for you because a day without Harikatha, talking about the Bhagavatam, etc., is a weird day. It's a weird day, so I don't feel good.
No,
Don't feel
don't
good
want to
about
do
that. Thanks, everybody. Hey, check out what's going on. Is it up on our website or Wisdom of the Sages website, all the actions? Mara says yes. Mara says yes.
All right.
It is. Go to wisdomofthesages.com. January. Go over down Eco Village. We've got the wisdom training. And before the wisdom training, we got the Kirtan Academy. You can go to both of those, or you can go to the 300-hour yoga training. It's all happening January at the Govardhan Eco Village. Me, Kastuba, Doyle Garunga, Cindy Lunsford, Bobby Marchand. It's going to be great. It's a great way to start your new year. Talk about like first thing you do in the morning. How about the first thing you do all year? You go to India, you go to the Govardhan Eco Village, and you completely prepare yourself for the rest of the year. It's quite wonderful. That's what I say.
And think about spending Janmashtami, September 6th, at the Bhakti Center in New York City.
Yeah, it's going to be great. We're going to hang out with Scuba there. We're going to sing some songs. We're going to talk our talk. We're going to talk about Lord Krishna's appearance. Janmashtami means the Janma, the appearance or the birth. Krishna can't really get born like we get born, but they call it the birth on the 8th day of the moon. Krishna's going to appear, and it's a very, very big holiday all over the world. It's sort of a Krishna Christmas. Would you say it? Sort of a Krishna Christmas. No
like
tree. No tree involved. And there's no
tree.
Santa Claus.
You can
No
bring a
one's
tree
coming
for
down.
it.
No one's coming down the chimney, but there's, the usual. Great song, great dance, great people, great prashad. January 6th at the Bhakti Center Wednesday. I'm going to be there. September 6th. It's right before Lori's retreat that we're doing with Lori Pag.
Oh.
Let me get Lori to come. Get Lori and the chief. The chief will dress like Santa Claus. Let's add Santa to Janmashtami. Why not?
No.
Why
no
not?
need. It's called Rasa Bas, Raghunath. That's why not.
I don't know if it's Varsabas. It might be just sort of like, why not?
It's a
Like, you
bad
know what?
mixture. Rasa Bas. Bad mixture of taste. They don't go
It
together.
might be a good mixture. You know what I mean? Like sometimes people combine things. You're like, I never thought orange juice and, almond milk would go together, but they do. Try it. You think it's Rasabas. It might be, maybe.
You don't even have to. Some things you don't even have to try.
Dress as a cowherd boy, but an older cowherd boy with a beard and a bag of presents. Cowherd
Not gonna
man.
do it.
Cowherd man.
Rejected.
I'm going to
Your
dress
idea
as
is
it. Okay?
rejected.
Then I'm going to do it. Me and the chief. We're going to call ourselves the twin cowherd men who come every Janmashtami to deliver presents. And we ride a special vehicle.
Well, if you give out good
What
presents,
vehicle
it'll
do we ride?
probably
Mini bikes.
you'll probably get away with it. Doesn't mean it's a good idea, but people will appreciate it.
Sometimes things just need, what was like Martin Luther? He was
What?
what do they call it? What was Martin Luther? He was a reformer. We're the reformers.
Or deformer.
I got a present for you. Once I give you the present, you won't be arguing anymore. You'll be like, you know what? It is a good idea. Bring.
What are you giggling about now?
It can be bought. It can be bought.
I was saying you couldn't be bought so easily, Kastuba, because you're a Brahmana. and
It's
you're
gonna have to be a
detached.
real good. It's gonna have to be a real good present.
The cowherd twins are here, giving their presents on Janmashtami, riding their mini bikes. Their mini bikes pulled by small donkeys.